Welcome to Food Shrinks.
All right, welcome back to our third episode. Can you believe it, ladies?
I love it.
Yay.
Favorite time of day.
Yeah, so we're still sticking with what we've been talking about, which is what are some of our triggers. And today, Molly P is going to share about what her trigger has been or she's found in this recovery journey so far.
Yeah. I would say for me, if I'm going to return to use as far as like binging goes or like really get into, and I hate to use that term emotional eating these days because isn't all eating emotional on some level, right? We're like eating and we're like excited about it or something. But I would say for me, like the thing that's most likely to send me right back into that behavior is I don't exactly have the right terminology for it, but it's like when my world feels so out of control and I'm feeling overly controlled by it. So I was just explaining to the ladies, like if I have, 8 clients back to back, I've got deadlines for this, that, or the other thing. My kids have got some sort of after school function or a school function or just need me to be mom. It's so overwhelming because I am the oldest daughter, right? Like I'm the oldest daughter, I'm the hero. I'm like all of these roles in my life throughout my lifetime. And every one of them like rises up and I feel like I have to be everything to everybody. I lose myself, right? I'm giving all my energy away. The only thing I focus on is getting the next thing done. I don't stop to go to the bathroom. I don't stop to eat my regular meals. And all of a sudden it's the end of the day. It's 7 p.m. It's 8 p.m. It's something. I need to cry, most likely, right? Like I feel it in me. I need to cry. I don't have time to cry though. So I've got it. So what do? I go and find the refrigerator, right? Or I find the food. Like that is the thing that will send me right back into it, and it's like angry, right? It's like you're shoveling it in and you're angry. You're like pissed. I'm pissed off that I didn't say no to things that I should have said no to. I'm angry that I didn't give my schedule in a break. I'm feeling really kind of like silly for not asking people to maybe reschedule or move some things around. And the thing about me is that, I think much like Clarissa, it is hard to ask for help. It's hard to ask for help because I am the person that nobody ever worries about. Right. Like I'm the person that people come to. Like I'm people's people. I don't have people. If that makes sense. I do have people. I want to just clarify. I do have people, but
in that moment, you don't feel that
in
way.
that moment, I don't feel that. And
everybody's story.
Yes, exactly. And I've lived my life, with like this belief system that the only person I can really count on is me. And Clarissa and I've had this conversation many times where like, there's a deadline for sweet sobriety or some podcast thing or whatever it is we have to do. And she knows it will always get done. She might have to remind me or just say like, hey, how's it going on that thing or whatever. But like, she doesn't have to micromanage me. She doesn't have to tell me how to do it. She just knows it will get done. And like, that's just a really good example of like, that's me. So I rarely ask
Molly
for
P
help.
keeps the time on our podcast.
Yeah. Sure. She does. Right. She keeps us in line.
Right.
She keeps us in
Mama
line.
Molly's on the job.
This is the least surprising story I ever heard in my life.
Yeah. And it's so interesting though, right? Because I know that I know this about me that I can easily get overwhelmed. And then I hear myself right now telling you ladies the overwhelming part. And I'm thinking, man, if this was a client saying this to me, I'd be like, of course you're overwhelmed. That is a lot of stuff in any one given day, any given week, any given month. You just wear so many hats. And I constantly feel, and with that then comes the feelings of guilt and shame as far as I don't feel like I'm a good enough mom because I can't give them everything, right? I can't give them enough time. I don't feel like I'm a good business partner or business owner or therapist or coach or whatever role it is I'm playing because I can't give my all there. I don't feel like I'm a good enough wife and partner because I can't give my all there. So it's just like this like spiral that just, right, it gets sucked in. And then the only thing that makes sense to my brain at that time for whatever reason is eat. Eat. Yeah.
Do you think the function of the eating is soothing? Do you think it's like that you're soothing? I mean, by the way, it sounds like you're also starving because you haven't eaten all day, but but also
that's also a factor. Yeah, I think it's twofold. Honestly, for me, I think there's a self-punishment in it.
Oh, say more about that.
Yeah. So when I'm in that place, like the initial probably like my initial start to it, I guess, is it's angry. It's angry at my, like, how could you be so stupid?
It's
Why
like
did you
turned
do this?
inwards.
Yes,
Like
it's
you're
so
Yeah.
turned
angry
inward.
outside, but you
Yep.
turn it inwards.
Self-harm.
Yep. Yes, exactly. It's self-harm to begin with. And then I would say, you know, as it continues, then it's just like, yeah, this feels good, right? It goes from feeling like a bad good. That's the other thing, is like, I love pain,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like a type 2 fun girl, whatever. So there
What is
is like a,
that? Wait, for those in the
yeah.
audience like me who
So,
don't know
right,
what
what's
that
type
means.
2? So I purposely seek out experiences that are really hard and difficult, that are painful in some way, physically, emotionally, psychologically, whatever, because the outcome then, like, that's my type 2 fun, right? So maybe it's a really difficult hike, but I like do the 20 miles in a day. Right.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, like I might be crying, I might be bleeding, I might be muddy, I might be whatever on the whole thing. But
It's
when I
called
get
a
back, then I'm
type
like,
2
type
wait,
2 fun.
so wait, Clarissa,
Yeah.
what are you? Are you a type 2 fun
I'm like
girl?
probably a type 10 fun.
What, like because you
I
want to do.
jump off the cliff.
Oh, I'm like a type 0 fun girl. Like if I was on Survivor, I'd be like, that's fine. You can vote me. I don't want to be here anymore. Like if they were like, here's the competition, I'd be like, that's fine. I'm gonna go
Right.
Yeah,
home.
you
I'd like a
win.
bed
Right.
and a cup of coffee. This is
Right.
okay. Well,
Where
okay.
I would be devastated, right? Because I
We
want
would,
that experience.
yeah, we
I
gotta
want
find a
it to be hard.
very interesting vacation for the three of us to go
Yes,
on
that would
together.
be
This
It would
needs
amazing.
to
be.
maybe hire a travel agent
Yeah.
because this
It
is not
would
going to be as
be.
easy as I thought.
It
Okay.
would be. It would be. So
Okay.
that makes it difficult with that self-harm part of it, because
Yeah.
I almost love the pain.
Interesting.
And so then, yeah, it can then evolve into, okay, now this is just soothing. Now this is just something I want to do. But it's always kind of, for me, edges on that self-harm side.
Interesting.
Like you could easily replace it with cutting in my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is it like I'm so mad at this moment. I'm so mad at this schedule. I'm so mad at this dependency that people have on me that I
No,
need to have a feeling?
no, it's,
It's
I'm
being
so
controlled.
mad. Yes, that I'm so mad that I'm being controlled. I'm so mad that I feel out of control. I'm so mad that I am not good enough to be all of those things to the
Yeah.
capacity that I believe I should be.
Yeah.
Even though it's completely unrealistic.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's the CPTSD mind, right? Like
Well, wait, what's
that
for those listening,
engages.
what's the
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
CPTS?
So
What's
the
this?
complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I get into, right, when that is activated, it doesn't have to make sense.
Right.
It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to feel safe.
That's right.
And going back into that abusive eating cycle is familiar,
Oh yeah. It's the
which
oldest
means
friend
it
you
feels
have.
safe to my brain, but it
Yeah.
certainly isn't healthy. It certainly isn't actually
Yeah.
safe, right? Like we all know that,
Yeah.
but that's where it goes, is like, my binge eating episodes have never been like, oh, comfort me. It's always been this angry, give me pain, because if I have that physical pain, I know what to do with that. It's the
Mm.
emotional, psychological pain that still torments me to this day, even with all the therapy, even with all the different medicines, even whatever. My threshold for that is probably higher than I think that it is, but my brain, right, but my story is, you're weak.
Yeah,
Come
but
on.
don't you like always in session, like, I think this is such like an important thing to talk about because the amount of times like trying to explain this to somebody, which is like, this is, even though this is painful and not giving you the outcome that you want, this is still the safest, most desirable thing for your nervous system
Yep.
and your mind to do right now. I have
Yeah.
spent years trying to explain this because the
Yeah.
shame comes in and like almost like the simplicity of it, like, but Molly, I'm paying you to help me stop binging. And I
Yeah.
can't, and yeah, and I'm like, I get it. But also in these moments, you're always gonna return. Like
Yeah. That
Dr.
override
Becky
is
always
there.
says this thing, like, even if you're trying to learn Mandarin, if you're trying, like in the pinch, you're gonna start speaking English. Like that's
Yeah.
just the deal. Like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's a frustrating, that's probably the most frustrating part about those episodes, right? Is that you think somebody, if I reach out and say, this is what's happening, somebody's going to be, and at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to work for me personally is that I need to be better about prioritizing myself, and I don't even have to think about it in terms of self-care. I don't even have to think about it in terms of whatever, but like, I don't even consider myself a lot of the time.
Is that what happens on days like that? You just
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of go into a different nervous system space
Oh,
and
yeah.
just kind of like binge out your schedule?
Oh,
That's like
yeah.
the habit that you have?
I
Wait, if
am a
you're not
master
watching
at
this on YouTube,
dissociating.
she's
Yeah.
like getting high off
Yeah.
of me. Like
Oh, I am.
saying it.
I
She's
am.
like,
Because here's the thing. Because here's the
you
thing.
know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can dissociate like none other. Clarissa actually witnessed it happening and called me on it. And it's so funny because I can go in and out. I can go in and out, and sometimes I have control over it. Sometimes I will purposely dissociate. And there are times that I don't even know what's happening or whatever. And we were walking through an airport, and Clarissa was like, "Where are you? Like, where are you right now? Because you are not with me." And that's what happens on days like that, where I look at my schedule. I'm like, oh, fuck, like what was past Molly thinking when she did this? She was probably
Yeah.
thinking, oh, that's future Molly's problem, because that is exactly how I treat myself. I know. Right.
Oh my God.
I love
So,
that.
Pain of
it's not
relating to
always
this
like that. It's not,
episode is
I know
making me
it's
have
not
to go
always like
schedule an
that.
extra therapy session.
Right. I know it's not always like that, but there are definitely days that come up in my life these days. I'm much better about it. I do block out lunch. I do block out breakfast. I do block out dinner. I do give myself gaps between clients so that I at least get a 30-minute bio break, walk outside, get some sunshine on my face. But there is the odd day when that still happens, where for whatever reason, the universe conspires and everything is falling apart, or everything is due that day, or the car decides to break down, whatever. And that is, like you were saying, I'm learning to speak Mandarin and I immediately revert to English. And I think it's really hard to talk about when you're in this space, because the belief is that we're supposed to have it all figured out. We are the professionals, but like
Yeah,
you
we're
said last
supposed to be
episode,
like
like we're still
epic
human.
self-care girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly I am better at it than I ever was.
Yeah.
Arguably probably better at it than most people. Like,
Yeah.
by the way, talk
Maybe.
like hashtag perfectionism. Like nobody's good at
Right.
self-care.
No.
Nobody.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I'm still vulnerable to being human and things going sideways. And then that behavior shows up and it doesn't feel good. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you're like, yep. In the moment, you're like, this is the only thing that makes sense. And it's not sense. Like, it doesn't, right? But it does.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you have all of the feelings. There are the feelings of like, yeah, that needed to happen. But there are also the feelings of, oh, fuck, now I've got to, wake up tomorrow morning and put my big girl pants on and tell somebody that it happened, get right back on, right back to what I'm supposed to be doing. That works for me. That I know that works for me. And that's hard. I mean, I had to make a call to Clarissa a couple weeks ago to tell her some really hard things, that was going on for me. And I'm telling her a lot sooner than I ever used to.
Right.
And
And
it's
it
not a perfect
shifts
process.
quickly after.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
That's
it did.
literally, I was
It did
thinking the
too.
same thing. Like,
Yes.
this is actually, if you're listening, this is the process. Like,
Yeah.
and anybody who's telling you that it's bippity boppity boo is a liar, and fire them right now. Seriously. Like this is the only way we learn.
We have to practice. We
Yeah.
have to have our own struggles, and that through the struggles, that's the gift we're
Yeah.
given, is
Yeah.
that we can do it differently and have to be willing to try to do it differently.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say that's different, how I'm showing up different in my life today versus, 20 years ago, or even 8 years ago, or whatever. Is I'm certainly telling people a lot sooner. My husband knew a lot sooner. Clarissa knew a lot sooner. My therapist, I luckily had an appointment coming up with her, but Clarissa's right. I spoke with her on like a Monday or a Tuesday, and it had been awful and bleak, like dark places. And I think like within hours of having talked to her, I was like, I had turned I was like, who was that? Who was that Molly 10 hours
Yeah.
ago? Because that is not who I feel today or right now. And speaking to like how quickly that can shift, right? If we just do the things like ask for help or tell people that we're struggling, if we can just get to that vulnerable place, which is a really big ask, but if we can get there, it does shift something.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to ask for help. It's the
Mhm.
hardest thing.
Or to share that you're like struggling in that way. I mean, I just
Yeah.
also want to say I have like 9 patients scheduled on Monday, and I'm committing to the group that I'm going
Yeah.
to try to move a couple. I'm like really
Okay.
having a bit of a
Please.
dissociative episode. I was
Yes.
like,
Right.
wait,
Yeah.
is the universe just telling me that this is about to happen? This is like a foreshadowing episode for
Yeah.
me. I think
Yeah.
that's right. I don't know about you guys, but like I'm old now. Like I'm tired for 2 days after that kind of brain power for that long. Like I'm just
Yeah.
not like it's really going to harm me and those around me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say if you are a person who finds themselves overscheduling or feeling controlled by the schedule or whatever, you know, figuring out how you can schedule in buffers of time around appointments and meetings and clients and whatever. Make sure you are putting your meal times on your calendar.
Yeah.
Feel free if I use Calendly, so that means that my clients can just go to my link and they can schedule themselves whenever they want. So I have to make sure that I'm protecting my time on my end. Give yourself permission to like go turn off any sort of like automatic scheduling things for a while. You can put them on pause, block out days on your calendar, right? Like even if that means that you're still putting things in there, but you've blocked it out so you get to have more control of it. I would say keep talking to people, you
Also,
know,
like we have to
yeah.
remember, I don't know, as like a recovering people pleaser, like when I'm saying yes to everything, I'm saying
Mm.
no to
To
like
you.
To
myself. And
Yep.
like
me.
when I'm saying yes to everything, I am literally buying stock in me being the most bitchy, resentful version of myself.
It's so
Like
true.
people, when I say no to people, they should be like, "Oh my God, thank you." Like my best friend should be like, "Oh, I'm so glad you just said no to that." Cause I would have like probably taken the hit on it. The only other thing I just want to remind us all, like also, like when we're saying yes to everything, it really is going to trigger your nervous system. It's really going to trigger, like, we're really sitting here talking about a fight flight response. And for
Yeah.
me, at least, like
Absolutely.
an appease response. That's mine. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Mm.
like, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And anytime we're in that heightened nervous system, we do not see the world accurately.
Yeah.
Like
Yep. We have,
when our nervous system isn't attended to, we actually can't like, and I say this as someone who gets into appease like before I can clock that I'm in appease, but at least it's good to know, right?
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
always say check in with your state and then the story.
Word. Can we make that into our brand name? Yeah. State then story.
Yeah.
So true.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a practice, right? I'm working every day to say like, hey girlfriend, how are you doing? I talk to myself like I talk to my daughters, right? I might call them girly pop, I might call them girlfriend,
Okay.
love, whatever. And I try to talk to myself in the same way, use the same language, like, hey, how are you doing? What do you need? Do you need a drink of water? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need some food?
Mm.
Do you need a walk? Do you need to talk to Clarissa? What do you need? And so I'm really trying to get into that habit of, like you said, Clarissa, checking the state first, and
Mhm.
then what is the story behind it. And honestly, the best way for me is to think about talking to my children or even my dogs. I talk to my dogs all the time. Hey, what are you doing? What do you need? You're here to get some love. Like
Ooh,
maybe I
so
need some
cute.
love. Yeah.
Wait, what about the days though? Because I always think about my sickest self and I'm listening to this. I'm like, well, good for you, Molly. I'm so glad you can schedule in lunch. Like, that's amazing. I can't do that. Like, I have 3 jobs and I have 4 kids and I can't. Like, what do we say to that listener who's like, sweet? What do we say to like that listener?
Yeah.
What's the counsel?
Yeah. I think that's where I go to the place of like, I get it. I get you are busy and that is survival. And it's really hard to prioritize something that seems the story becomes, oh, this isn't important enough. It's frivolous. It's not as important as these other things
That's a great one.
because of the survival
Mhm.
piece.
That's a great
Mhm.
one.
And both things it can also be important because you can't go for very long, right? We just heard Clarissa talk about like how long could she actually go not eating as much as she needed to before it became right an emergency. And the
Right.
same is true for us in this situation, as far as I've had that client that's pushed back and said, listen, I don't have time for it. And I pushed back and I said, 10 minutes.
Yeah,
10
that's
minutes.
all you need for a self-care
10
check-in,
minutes.
right? And having those questions maybe already written down. How am I feeling physically today? What emotions am I experiencing? What are
Yeah.
some of the thoughts I'm noticing are going through my mind? How have my interactions with other people been today? Because if they've been really off, that usually tells me where my nervous system is, like Molly said.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, have I, had enough water today? Those things can take only 5 minutes just to run through that
I'm also
checklist.
like always so taken by the nervous system and the eating disorder when they like, sort of create an evil crime gang of like, my eating disorder is so about quantity and
Yeah.
my recovery is so about quality. So
Mhm.
Yes.
I know when I'm in this, like, well, can I get to Barry's and then can I get the patient and da 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 and then can I get to lunch? Like that's just like my not enough. Like that's not the fuel I want. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
like if you have 3 jobs, like also
Yep.
Teak Not Han is like takes a vacation when he opens a door. Like there's a really good
Yeah.
YouTube on that.
Yeah.
Like
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
bless him. Like I'm like, good for you, man. I just need a vacation. But I do think there's some kind of, trauma recreation, safety, like safety as we're talking about it on this episode. Like understand that urgency is very rarely your wise mind. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
you may need 3 jobs, but like I gotta believe there's some kind of solution that we can attend to like you, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And that's why I said, like, I've had that client. I've literally had that client more than once, but
Yeah.
this one particular one comes to mind. And I pushed back in 10 minutes and they started eating lunch for 10 minutes. And then it grew, they liked it. Like
Mhm.
they were like, oh, let me expand it to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30
Yeah.
minutes. And then pretty soon they're taking a full hour for their lunch. Go figure, a full hour.
They found it and they found
Yeah.
an
Mhm.
hour,
They found it.
right?
It took
Yeah.
a little time and it took working through some of the guilt then that can show up, like you were saying, like the appeaser, right? Like, oh no, I'm not giving enough, whatever. But it, just that it doesn't have to happen right now. We don't have to jump head first into the 3 foot end of the pool, like 10 minutes. Find 10 minutes to sit down
Yeah.
and eat your salad.
I start group with like a 1 minute meditation. And the thing I always say after it is like, it is amazing how long a minute is.
Mhm.
It really is. Like if you
I
sit quietly
know.
we won't do it for you guys, but
Yeah.
if you sit quietly for a minute, like I'm like, that's actually an incredibly long time. Like we always think we need like a day off or whatever. And then you're saying, and then last episode, Claire's like, if I have like 10 minutes to sleep, I'm like really nervous. Like that makes like
Yeah.
it actually activates. Like, so it's just about like, and again, like I'm so glad we're talking about this. We are like very, very good therapists
Yeah.
learning. Like we're all
Mhm.
learning. I think that like the real problem is when you can't say that this is a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always said, if I'm not buying what I sell, that's a problem.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to go to therapy and work on my things, if I'm not willing to reach out and have somebody coach me through my recovery, if I'm not willing to do that work, that's a problem because
Yeah. But if
we
you're not
also,
willing to say, I have a problem,
Right.
I
yeah,
mean, we're all willing to go to therapy, but in
yeah,
the contingent on that is us being like, yeah, I really need to work on this
this
thing. I think
thing.
this
Mhm.
happens in
Yep.
especially in food addiction recovery, where
Yes.
this like idea of like complete abstinence. It's like this is
Right. You've got
so
it all figured out.
what a
Yeah.
con, man. Because
Yeah.
all it
Oh,
does is promote lying. Like
that's
what a
it.
Right.
con. It's like as bad as diet culture in its own way. What a
Oh,
con.
yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Oh, yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
healers, we're humans, we're
Yeah.
working on it.
We are
Yeah.
working on it. And that's the thing is like by having these conversations, by having our power circle, as you call them, Molly, it helps us to not be like impaired clinicians. So we have people
Yeah.
who are like, we should probably like put a pause on seeing clients, or you know what, you're okay, but we're going to keep checking in every week, or we're going to, right.
Mhm.
There's some sort of plan that goes on so that there's oversight,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's just for a little while until you're
Yeah.
stabilized again. And I think that just if nothing else for me, that instills so much more trust in my therapist, knowing that she does that kind of work,
Yeah.
that she's got people that are like, yeah, probably
Yeah.
not today. You shouldn't be, maybe you should just take the day off, whatever. And then I know I can do the same. And hopefully listeners know that
If
they
your
can do the
coach isn't
same.
being
Yeah.
coached, fire them.
Yeah,
Yep.
Swear
that's
to God.
it. if they're not doing work.
And if
Yeah.
they say something like, well, I don't really need it right now, fire them.
Immediately.
I'm like,
No
what?
notice.
We go to group therapy together.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there's
Yes.
lots to talk about.
Yes.
And not
Always.
clients, our stuff.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So don't be afraid.
I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, truth is really my love language. I really loved
It
this
is.
episode.
Same.
I know.
Truth
So
and
great.
transparency.
Thanks for your
Thank you so much for
vulnerability,
being
MP.
willing.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Molly.
Yeah.
You're the
Thanks for
best.
listening.
All right. We'll do it all again next week. Thanks for coming to our
Woohoo!
party, listener. We love
Woo!
you.
Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.